Hi, today I'm interviewing Derek Sheperd. He is a strategic advisor at a Canadian exempt market dealer and also the CEO of Periscope Bioscience. Derek, please introduce yourself.
I've been in the wealth management, investment banking, sort of finance world since I was in my 20s, which was a couple of years ago. I originally started as a wealth manager for a Canadian investment dealer. I built up my book doing high net worth clients and things like that. I switched into the investment banking side in it because I really had more of a passion for putting things together. And I loved working with clients, but I loved sort of, more of creating the deals and the creative strategy behind it. So I left that, started my own company that focused on aggregating commodities from Latin America. And then we've been selling it into the Chinese market. I built that business into a pretty significant enterprise. We were taken out and I exited in 2016. And then from that point, I was kind of like, okay, I want to focus on things that I really enjoy and, things that I feel that I can make a difference in the world. So I got really involved in the plant medicine space. And I built out a company called Periscope Bioscience, and I do consulting for a number of different businesses. And then I'm also a strategic advisor for a new exempt market dealer called Charterhouse Prime, based in Vancouver.
From the get-go, what I'm hearing is you've been working in many subsectors of the finance industry. And it's not something we commonly hear, around us. All we hear about is consulting, either for the top, strategic advisory firms or, banking, PE, VC, and that's pretty much about it if I'm, obviously exaggerating it. How did you do, in your early stages of your career to be aware, to develop such an awareness of all those subsectors and then build the confidence to go for it?
It quite honestly was a bit of a leap of faith. When I was with the Canadian investment dealer, and I had a book of business which was quite significant, and I was kind of really moving up, and I said, I want to leave and I want to start my own company and I want to do this and I want to become an entrepreneur, and everyone around me, my business partner, my parents, my partner at the time was like, "You're crazy. What are you doing? This is nuts." But I'm not really one to sort of, when someone tells me I can't do something, I tend to sort of will push harder at it, which works some ways and other ways not so much. The interesting thing is I picked a business with the commodities that was very much out of my quite almost, it was out of my depth, and it was also out of my normal sphere. I mean, I'm a wealth manager in Vancouver, and then I'm building this commodity thing where I'm like, I moved to Shanghai. I was there for a year building out and meeting with Chinese government. And then to secure the buy side, I moved to Mexico City and lived in Mexico for 4 years, and meeting with government and miners and all the intricacies of Latin America. And I really loved it. And it was just one of those things like, I didn't have any experience doing that. I just sort of learned as I went. It was interesting, but it was really a very rewarding experience. And it's something that, I think a lot of people in finance, they really get pigeonholed into, okay, you're on the wealth management side, you manage people's money, or you're an investment banker, you do that, or you're a commodities trader or something. A lot of people, don't really take that step away from the corporate world and go into being an entrepreneur, be it, commodities is different. And what I'm doing now in plant medicine, we're A grading, different assets that are undervalued in the plant medicine space. So cannabis, psychedelics. I'm very active in the mental health space on a volunteer standpoint. I work with Coast Mental Health in Vancouver as a volunteer. And, so I really want, like, you can kind of find something, you apply your skills and your acumen that you've learned through finance and through a big corporate world, and you apply that to another business. And there's actually quite a lot of crossover. You have to be prepared for an initial pay cut, and, you have to be prepared that, when the computer goes down or something, there's not an IT person, and, nobody's stocking the lunchroom with coffee, all of those kind of things. As an entrepreneur, you kind of have to like bootstrap it. But I think the rewards for it are pretty good. So
Again, very impressive that, you've been able to have such a clear vision as to the different other, playing fields where you wanted to play in and then went for it. At some point in our life, we may struggle to take a step back and have more of a refined vision of the different opportunities out there. What tips would you share with these busy professionals who struggle to take that step back and open their blinders to the different opportunities out there?
I think that the one thing that I've always lived my life by, and it's obviously not every day can't be perfect, but I really like if you're doing something you're really passionate about and that you love, you're going to be very successful with it if you work hard and you're doing that. A lot of where people get wrong is they're in a career and they're making lots of money, and it's kind of it's very prestigious and those kind of things. But every day they're going to work and they've just lost their passion for it. Obviously every day you go to work is not going to be candy canes and unicorns. It's going to be there's going to be up days and down days. But if the net of it is like, I really don't like my job, I really don't like what I'm doing, I don't like these things, that's when you kind of want to say, okay, well, what do I like doing, and what am I passionate about, and what am I excited about? And then you say, okay, well, here's those things. And you maybe I'm a big list person, so you make a list of all these things, and you're like, okay, well, what business can I apply those, or what could I be doing that I'm in that space? And obviously, if you're a finance guy, you're not going to become a plastic surgeon or a doctor unless you want to go back to medical school and all those things. But when I said, okay, I like putting deals together and I like working on that stuff, the creative side, I tried to move to the investment banking side of the company I was with. And I was, one of the top retail brokers, but they were like, no, we you need to have an MBA, you need to have a CFA and all this. So that's where I was kind of like, okay, well, fair enough. I'm going to do my own. I'm going to go build my own company. Which I did. And so that was the impetus behind it. And so like a lot of people were like, hey, I can't do investment banking. I can't be an investment banker. I can't be venture capital. I can't start my own company. I don't have an MBA. I don't have this. I don't have that. And so a lot of times there's always an excuse in your mind of, okay, well, because there's the sort of the textbook way of doing it. And then there's, the other way. And so that's what pushed me into that. And that's what sort of, I really just felt, okay, I like this, I'm excited. And I've always had, ever since I was in my early 20s when I started in business, is that like, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing and I'm not challenged or I'm not passionate about it, even if I'm really good at it and I'm successful at it, you make a change. Obviously, you have to you can't just, okay, I'm not coming into work today. You sort of just think, okay, well, how do I exit, or how do I get out of this, or how do I, do this very smoothly? I think that's a skill that a lot of people need to do. It takes a lot of courage at the time, because when I did leave the brokerage to start my company, I was fairly financially secure. I had a lot of flexibility, but I think that's, people in a more, even if they have kids and they're more financially insecure, you can still look at ways to sort of transition into what you want. It might not happen the next day or the next month or the next year, but you set the path and say, okay, well, here's where I want to be. Here's what I want to do. Here's where I am. What do I need to do to go from A to B? Realistically, if you do it very pragmatically and you focus on what you're good at and you work really, really hard and be prepared to sacrifice, some sleep, be prepared to sacrifice that you probably can't take vacations, be prepared to sacrifice that you won't have a regular paycheck coming in and things like that. So you have to kind of manage it, but it's rewarding. And seeing your business and seeing things grow, and just basically getting up every morning and working on something that you really like is I think that's what life's about. So
we often hear people who become entrepreneurs, they've exited the corporate world, they become entrepreneurs, they're hell-bent on being entrepreneurs, and they never want to go back. And now what I'm hearing is that you've built an impressive, business, Periscope Bioscience, and obviously it's still growing. You're working really hard on it with your team, but you obviously went back to corporate because you're now a strategic advisor at this Canadian EMD. Was it ever your purpose to go back to corporate while being an entrepreneur and juggle both, or did this opportunity just present itself?
I look at things and I see where there's an opportunity that I can add a lot of value in a company, and I'm an active hands-on partner and investor into businesses. So, there's businesses that I've created, and then there's businesses that are existing that I come into and help work on. That's really sort of like, and there's I have a couple other small side projects as well. But I just look at things that I'm like, okay, do I like the people? Do I see an opportunity with this business? And is there something that I can add value? That's the most important thing. So, even though I'm a strategic advisor to an established exempt market dealer, it's a new exempt market dealer and they're going to be growing it. So it's very much like starting a small business. So, my role is bringing in some thought process on that I've done before, working on some of the projects and things like that to grow the business. I see that very much. That's an entrepreneurial. It's not a paycheck kind of thing. It's more that you're partners and you're working on the ultimate. So if the business is successful, you're successful.
What also caught my attention in your career story is that you've worked in fast-paced industries for many, many, many years, right? In wealth management, as a broker, when you were traveling between Asia and Latin America, you've done it all. And so tell us more about what was your day-to-day routine like and your work-life balance like working incredible hours.
Yeah, I think definitely. So when I first started in wealth management as a broker, I was in my early 20s, and when you're in your early 20s, you have a lot more energy and bandwidth. I would be starting on market hours. I was on the West Coast, based in Vancouver, so you're at work by 5 a.m., 5:30, at my desk by 6, doing 6:30 when the market opens, which is obviously the West Coast. Quite often I wouldn't get a full 8. I certainly wouldn't get a full 8 hours of sleep. There was definitely a culture where people go out for drinks, and you're drinking, you go out for dinner and those kind of things. Certainly on the weekends I was going out. On some days I would be, averaging 4 hours, 6 hours sleep, if that. There was certainly in my early 20s, there was nights where you'd be out till 4 a.m, come home, quickly shower, throw your suit on, and be at your desk. And and it would just be the cycle with that. I wasn't really taking, I think, good care of myself. You're also drinking coffee the whole day because you're tired, obviously, and then you're running out you don't really have time to do lunches, and so you're grabbing fast food, so you're not healthy in that perspective. I was always pretty good with the gym, and then when things really kind of shifted into like overdrive, was when I started my own company that we were doing the commodities and stuff like that, because I was working on a whole bunch of different time zones, and you're just basically like, there's work and emails and all these things coming in because we're dealing with Asia. Our capital came out of Europe. I'm based in Latin America, and and then I'm traveling constantly. So like you just get into this, cycle that you're constantly, like, you're not really sleeping, and then you're asleep for a couple hours and you're up, and those kind of things. And I was drinking, I think, quite a bit as well, because in order to just calm down. So you combination that, I was taking sleeping pills because you're the different time zones, and it just became this, like, also the stress level was pretty nuts. Because that is part of starting your own business, that people need to be aware. But I didn't really know how to balance it out. So as opposed to like, going for a run or going and meditating or something like that, I would go out drinking, or I would, pop a sleeping pill and fall asleep, rather than, having a meditation or a warm shower or going in the sauna or something like that. That sort of really culminated, over the years that I had that business. And when we exited, I really sort of, once the business I exited and I was just me, and I had a fair amount of time and freedom, I really sort of, that's when I really took a close look at myself. And because it's like you can't sort of use the business and your work to sort of not look at yourself. You now have to focus, like, okay, I need to focus on myself. And that's really, because I was always just, my thing for everything, my relationship's not going good, as long as my business is good, I would just throw myself into work. And that was always my thing. And then once the work's not there, you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, am I like, how did this has happened? And when I didn't have that, I went into a pretty big depression, and that obviously, ended up in, I had almost like essentially a mental health breakdown, where I just became, it just was too much. Like it was a full breakdown.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing and being really honest and candid with us. You're doing it so eloquently. I'm sure it will resonate with many. What did those things teach you? That unhealthy routine and unhealthy habits and the result of it on your physical, mental health teach you about you and your environment.
You're not invincible. You feel like if you're doing really well and you're doing these big deals and you're making all this money and you're this really powerful person, you feel like you're invincible, and that, and then, at some point your body just gives out, or your brain gives out, or you just realize, okay, hey, I'm actually kind of an asshole. For myself, it was just basically like, the year that I didn't do anything, it really gave me sort of an opportunity to look at myself and be like, okay, well, what is it that makes me happy? What will give me pleasure in life and make me passionate again? Because I'd lost my passion. Or I was just sort of working too hard on that. And I said, because I need to be doing something that I'm passionate about, but I don't want to just jump back into another business, and I don't want to do all these things. And so I really sort of took that year and focused a lot on, fitness, eating healthy, wellness, doing gratitudes, all the things, and where you wake up and you make a list of the things that you're grateful, or you say it to yourself, or you say it out loud to yourself. And I got it involved into plant medicine, where, with microdosing psychedelics, that really helped me. I also found that, plant medicine, as far as CBD and gummies and things like that, it was good to sort of just mellow out rather than having, a couple glasses of wine or going out drinking. And I really, really cut out the whole, going out partying with your friends and things like that. I mean, once in a while, it's fine. But when it becomes something that you're just like, and a lot of people in our industry, they drink a lot and they do a lot of things because they're just they can't calm down, or they don't really want to, look at themselves closely. It's easy just to and that's really, I also became very, very aware of or sort of more in tune with my feelings of like, okay, am I happy in this moment? Am I sad? Do I enjoy this? Do I not enjoy this? What is it that or even interactions with people. So I really jettisoned a lot of people around me, and really said, okay, well, I only want to spend time with people that I like, and that the people are adding value to my life, and I'm adding value to theirs. So, a lot of friends went, other friends you find when you're not drinking and you're not doing stuff, they're kind of, they're the friends that you want to go up to a party with. They're not really the friends that you hang out and go for a walk or talk about something important. And so cleaning house around that, it leaves a lot of good. The only energy around me was pretty good. So the people that were still in my life, and, obviously family, close friends, that was a good environment. And I felt, much better. And so going forward, I said, okay, well, I only really want to, I'm going to balance my life, and I'm going to work very hard, but I'm also really going to make sure that I'm also working hard on myself, my health, my mental health, my physical health, your spiritual health, because if I'm not doing that, it's going to, it's just like anything. Like if you push something too hard, it's going to break at some point. And then it also what I found with that is it actually made me a better person in business. I was more creative. I was more, coming up with different things. I was more, I think, just a more successful person in that regard. I also found that my interactions and my, interpersonal things, be it my, someone that I'm dating or my friendships, became better, more in depth, better, better quality. And so it was sort of like, you just level up in, a lot of times people want to level up in like, bigger house, new Ferrari, that kind of thing. I really wanted to level up in like, okay, do I feel like I'm a good person? Do I like the people around me? Do I like what I'm doing? Am I calm? Like, am I in like, the cliche, the bliss or Zen? That was very much what I was seeking. Also, I love business, and I want to build things, and I want to create. How do I bring those two things together? We created this plant medicine business with my partners in this. And then that's really sort of, it's a lifestyle, in the sense where, like, I am who I am, and what you see is what you get. Some people, really like that, other people don't. And I think that part of, as you become more aware of yourself and aware as a human being, and as a business person, you're like, okay, well, this is who I am, and this is what I do, and this is how I do it. And, people they either like that or they don't. And, if it's not a match, it's not a match, and if you focus on matches, you're going to be much more successful, and a much happier person.
What was the catalyst of you wanting to change your life and live a healthier lifestyle? Was there a rock bottom moment? Just like, my clients who are burnt out, they've hit max burnout, they need to change. Or was it more of a gradual process, just like my clients who, still working really hard and stuff, but they sense that they cannot continue that way. They want a healthier work-life balance, so they reach out to do it from the get-go and not wait until they're burnt out. So again, was it a rock bottom moment for you that led you to change lifestyle, or was it more of a gradual process?
No, it was candidly. I mean, it led up to a rock bottom moment, but it was very much, you know, one of those things that you're so unhappy for so long, and you're just like every day is not good, and your head goes into very bad places. And my rock bottom culminated in, you know, feeling suicidal, you know, and then sort of having a whole mental health breakdown where I went for treatment for 2 months, and that really helped kind of center things. You know, I was diagnosed with you know, depression and all those things that it's sort of like, because you're always like, well, why am I like, I just felt that there was like this baseline of like flat, and I just thought that was normal. I didn't like, you know, I would have like highs and lows where you're laughing or you're, you know, those moments, but overall I just, even no matter what was going on in my life, good or bad, that really sort of was the pivoting point. And just also the whole mental health breakdown in the situation where I'm just like, it was just enough. And at that point you're like, okay, you know, this is not the person that I want to be. I want to be, you know, a positive role model to other people in the business. I want to be a positive role model to young people. You know, I feel that's I guess now I have like a dad moment where I'm finally at that age where I'm like, yeah, I want to be good for young people. You know, I used to be the young person. In any event, and so I just also said, okay, well, I really, you know, I really actually do really like life. I don't want to, you know, end it. And, you know, but I want to live a different way. I want to focus on things and just take care of myself as a person. And you really actually, I think a lot of it stems down from, you know, and I think a lot of people in our business, their whole identity is their job and their money and those kind of things. And so they don't really work on, you know, as long as they're very successful and they're making tons of money, that's their whole identity. So when they remove that, you know, and then they actually have to like, oh, you know, they're either not a great friend, they're not a great partner, they're just not a, you know, not a great person, or they just, you know, aren't really anything other than their job. And I think that's really where I focused on myself. I'm like, okay, I'm more than my career. I'm more than, you know, those things. I'm, you know, and you kind of look at people, what is good about me, and those kind of things. And you really focus on that. And I really also focused on being, you know, a better friend, a better, you know, partner to my partner, you know, a better son to my family. And then also just a really, you know, making I've always been involved in nonprofits and volunteering. So that was always something that's pretty consistent, but I'm like, well, how do I do this better? How do I become a better person for my community? How do I, you know, apply my skills and all these things that I've kind of been gifted with, and you know, my knowledge of all these things, how do I apply that to volunteering and to causes and to things that are important to me and that are important in our world that we need to apply to.
I commend you for having the courage to listen to your emotions, to your bodily sensations, to how you're feeling inside, and, you know, giving yourself the space to ask for help and seek therapeutical and, you know, other sources of help, you know, to help you when you felt down. I'm also very impressed and honored that you're choosing to share this with us today. I'm sure this will help. And so what would you say to that one person who may be watching this video now, or they may feel down right now, or they may think that it's going in that direction? What would you say they would do to ask for help if they don't dare asking for that hand, you know?
Take a step back and don't just continue on and just bury it. I think a lot of times people just bury things, and then it's so far gone, or you've lived so many of your years and you're like, gosh, I really wish I changed this earlier. I wish I made this change, or I wish I took care of my mental health early. You know, because the problem is a lot of people aren't as you know, fortunate in the sense where I'm still here. You know, a lot of people, they really burn out or they go down a bad path in their 20s or 30s, and they, you know, their life is over in a sense. And that's, I think, the one thing that I really sort of advocate when I'm working with people with mental health or addictions is like, get help as soon as possible, and don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't feel that, you know, you're not invincible and you can't tackle everything. There's sometimes you're like, I need the helping hand. And, you know, or you know, having friends around you that are good people and that can, you know, you can talk with. I think that's a key thing. A lot of people really isolate. You know, they don't really, you know, they're having these issues, they don't talk about it, or they simply, the people around them are all enablers, and nobody really, like, you know, they're all friends until the music stops, and then nobody really cares. I think if you have good people around you and you're able to ask help, and be upfront with, issues that I think a lot of people, there's stigma around, mental health or addictions. I think the more that we remove that stigma, that this is a real thing, especially I think for guys, there's sort of this, you have this macho thing, and especially in finance, where it's like you just don't show, there is no depression, you're not sad, you're this, you're not stressed, like it's no problem, like this, it's the whole macho kind of culture, which is thankfully kind of changing for the better. But I think that's one thing, people really do need to sort of, put greater value on, your self-care. I think that's probably the most important thing.
It's now clear that you've merged all of your centers of interest and passions and turned them into a business. A lot of people have passions, but they don't dare turn them into businesses. And so how did you dare turn your passions, plural, into your now company that you're the CEO of?
I think it took a little bit of time, and a lot of it is I like to sort of when I look for opportunities and I look for sort of your next move, so to speak, I take a lot of time and look at something from 360. I'm like, okay, I recognize that I liked, health and wellness. I really saw the value of the plant medicine, be it cannabis, psychedelics, and nutraceuticals. I was like, this is kind of, in my mind, the next generation of pharmaceutical mental health treatments. And, I looked at the studies, the research supports that this is a better treatment for mental health and addictions, which are two things that I, myself and within the family have been interacted with. And I said, okay, well, that's one pillar of it. And I'm like, well, where's the business, or what is the business here? And I waited for probably about a year before I really got to start to put feelers out and to look into it. I said, well, right now, the sector had went like this, and now it's down here, and nobody wants to touch it because it's out of favor. And I'm like, okay, well, there's an opportunity to come into this business, to work with undervalued assets, raise capital, buy up and invest in businesses and put them together, or help or turn them around within that sector. Because my view is, within 2, 3, 5 years, this is going to be, probably one of the biggest sectors that we have. It's going to be the future of mental health and addiction, pharmaceutical stuff. That's sort of how that all came about. Is I said, okay, well, this is what I'm passionate about. What's the business model? How can this be profitable? And then how do I go about doing it? And that's really, where the intersection of all those three things came with. And that's quite honestly, like whenever even actually my first business that I started, the commodity thing, is I said, okay, well, I want to start doing this. I really like putting these deals together. I have a lot of experience working in commodities and resources. Like, I worked with a lot of mining clients. I'm like, okay, well, what is missing, or what can I bring to this world that is not there and that can be profitable? And that's really, I said, okay, well, there's an underserved market for small, mid-sized miners in Latin America. Access to capital is a lot harder. So I can pull capital from Europe, Canada, deploy it into Latin America, and it's a profitable business because we're able to sort of fund miners which could otherwise not be funded. And we can also make quite a bit of money on our money, because what we're borrowing for and what we're lending is significantly different. There's a good spread. That was really the whole impetus behind that. And it's very much kind of what I'm doing now with plant medicine. So like, okay, right now, everyone is running this way and running for fear. There's blood in the water. I want to run this way, and I want to stand straight and be like, okay, here's how we tackle this, and let's come at it from a smart and very much a contrarian, view. And that's very much how I govern a lot of my business things. I said, well, where's, you don't want to sort of be following the crowd. I think you want to be, figuring it out. And I think it was Warren Buffett was very much, when everyone's selling, you want to be buying, and buying a good asset at a discount is a really good thing. And that's very much something that the ethos that I've always brought into things. I like to do things that other people are not doing at that time. So
how confident are you about coaching being a great asset to do just that, to help people bring that awareness?
No, I think coaching is huge. I mean, one of the things I've always either had, a life coach, a mentor, or something like that, because you get so, again, like you're kind of in this visor thing. You need someone, an external source that you trust and that doesn't have any vested interest in they're not trying to compete with you. They're just, unbiased for you. And it's really good to bounce ideas, to understand things. And also that, you know, a third party can be like, oh, well, you're actually doing this, or they notice something that you're not aware of, or they can be like, hey, you should try this, or you'd be really great at this. And it's, so I think, you know, having a mentor, having a coach, be that a life coach, a business coach, you know, or even a counselor, all of those things add value, and it's going to make you a better person, and it's going to make you a more successful business person.
A final word?
The thing that I really believe in is you want to get to know yourself, and you want to really take time for yourself. You know, that's the most important thing, and figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing. If you can really, really be objective and self-aware in those things, I think you're going to be a much happier person, you know, in your personal life, in your work life, and overall in your lifetime, because you're going to really kind of focus on what's important to you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Derek, and thank you for your time today. It was such a pleasure to hear your story. Very inspiring, very motivating.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.